Hi everybody, I'm Gio, and welcome to a few writer's notes about my novel From a Stranger. There will be some spoilers in this, if you haven't heard it already, you might want to listen to it first, or if you don't mind, that's okay too. Okay, From a Stranger took approximately 30 days to write. I tend to be a rather quick writer. I write 6 to 10 pages a day. I am a pantser, which means I figure things out as I go, and I don't outline. Outlining takes all the fun out of writing for me, and so if I end up resorting to an outline to have to figure out a plot or characters or anything, I get bored, and I stop working on the project. That happened to me on a novel I was working on back in February, and I'm going to probably put that on YouTube too. But I took the advice of writing from the ending first, and I wrote the ending. I wrote a dramatic 70 pages ending. I really enjoyed it. And once I knew the ending, I couldn't work on the rest of the book. So I finally had to scrap everything I'd written. Like I said, it was about 70 pages, and come up with a new ending, completely different from what I had done, to be able to finish the book. And fortunately, I learned from that, so I didn't have to do that with From a Stranger. I just started from the beginning and worked forward, sometimes back, but I kept going forward. I think when you're a pantser, you always have to go back and forth because you're working on something in the middle and you realize you need to foreshadow that earlier in the book, and so you insert a scene or something. And that's what makes it fun, is the back and forth of it. But sometimes just the opposite happens. You come up with this wonderful idea and there's no way to use it later on in the book. So you end up saving the idea for another project. Now, From a Stranger is 28 chapters with epilogue, and it is 72,000 words long. It took about a month to write. I tend to do a draft per month. I'd write 6 to 10 pages per day of new stuff, and then I try and go over about 20 to 30 pages of old stuff per day. And sometimes I'll just have a session where I just read through everything I've written for that project. Now, I roughly follow the Save the Cat format, and here's where the spoilers come in. I'll just go over a couple of the things that I come up with. I find that the Save the Cat format helps me to keep track of where I am in the novel process and what I need to do next, or what I need to work towards. And if you think that the Save the Cat format is formulaic, well, then every story ever written is formulaic, because every story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in the beginning you introduce the characters and the setup, and in the end you have the conflict, and everything else happens in the middle. Okay, let's go through a few of these things. Some of these I have renamed because it works better for me. For example, the opening and closing images I call bookends because they hold your story in place. And in this story, we start off with Ilio being out of control in the water and being pretty badly injured. And that's the beginning. And in the end, we have Ilio. He's in control of himself on the water again, and he's married and he's got a family. The theme stated comes from Danny's dad, where he says the theme is, you need to tell your brothers. And that becomes the whole point of Danny's character arc. The setup, of course, is getting Danny to Hawaii with the failed wedding, and Timmy dying, and having the two meet in the bar. The catalyst. The catalyst and the debate tend to be interchangeable for me. The catalyst turned out to be Danny asking Ilio out to lunch, and then Ilio asking Danny to come hang out with him. And the debate turned out to be Ilio wondering why he should help Danny out. Danny's a complete stranger. He's from 3,000 miles away. Why should Ilio be involved? And throughout the course of the book, we learn a little bit about the reasoning behind Ilio being involved. Then we get into the second area, or the B story, where I introduce Noah. Noah becomes the antagonist for for Ilio's character arc. And we go through all kinds of fun and games where, we have the dating things, where we meet Billy, where we go surfing. And with the midpoint, we're in the middle of that, having fun. But that's where the bad guys close in. Noah comes hunting Ilio. And we have one of our pivotal scenes where Noah confronts Ilio in the bar, and Danny blunders in and rescues Ilio. The all is lost moment was something I had planned at the very beginning. Even though I don't outline, I had wondered about this, and it became sort of a natural all is lost moment. You see, Danny only has a week in Hawaii. The all is lost moment happened when Danny gets on the airplane to go back to Nevada. And so there's a natural all is lost moment there. And the dark night of the soul is Ilio and Danny being separated and having to deal with life without each other. And then we get to the ending where we break into Act 3. And we have a dual finale. We have Ilio working to solve his relationship problems with Noah, and the final confrontation with Noah and the sand crab bar. And then Ilio resolves that and flies over to help Danny with Danny's final confrontation, which is facing his brothers, who he's always been afraid of. And then we get into the final image, of course, where Danny and Ilio are out on the water and with their families, and they're in control of their lives again. And as far as character arcs go, both Ilio and Danny had a character arc. With Ilio, it was learning to stand up for himself, gaining that strength so he could face Noah. With Danny, it was learning to accept himself, because he'd been in hiding for so long that he was afraid of coming out, of being who he is. And both of them had to face their fears by the end of the book. That's the whole final scene. The whole final set of scenes was the confrontations. Now, From a Stranger was a fun book to write, because I toned it back from some of the earlier things I did, where we had the big fights and the big climactic things. I wanted this to be a lower key book, something a little more relatable, or a little less dramatic than some of the other projects I've worked on. So, anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave a comment or something. Oh, part of the reason why I decided to put this on YouTube was I wanted to read it out loud, and I wanted to be able to hear it, wherever I'm at. So that's why I put it on YouTube, so I could listen to it at other times. In reading it, it forced me to go over it, and I found several areas that I needed to improve, some sentence structures that had issues. In listening to it, I discovered I needed to work on my dialogue a little bit more. Some authors can get away with dialogue and not put in any kind of he saids or she saids or action beats. I discovered that made it confusing. I need to go every 3 to 5 sentences at least with a he said or she said or an action beat in order for it to make sense. Maybe later on I'll get a little better at dialogue so that I can improve that. But for right now, that's okay. I'm learning. Maybe someday I'll get to the point where I can actually publish something. But this was just for fun. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And I'll be starting a new project, well, this afternoon. Thank you.